Hello all, welcome to English Literature Link. Today we can move on to structuralism. So structuralism is a linguistic theory. As a methodology, structuralism emerged by mid-20th century. It emphasizes the importance of structures in deciphering meanings within the text. Linguistic turn in structuralism starts particularly with the work of Ferdinand de Saussure. We can have a detailed discussion on Ferdinand de Saussure and Saussure's contribution in linguistic turn in structuralism in the upcoming videos. So Saussure proposed that language operates as a system of sign. Language is nothing but a system of sign which is composed of signifier as well as signified. Now structuralism makes use of these concepts to literature, and structuralism perceives text as a part of larger linguistic system which consists of meanings, words and their meanings. Structuralism doesn't treat work of literature as isolated works. Rather than that, structuralism love to perceive a text as a part of larger systems of meanings. So the key principles of structuralism or structuralist theory includes: structuralism focuses on structure rather than content. So instead of focusing on what is there in the text, what about individual characters or plots and all or other formalist elements, structuralists love to study the underlying patterns and conventions that shapes narratives in its current form. First one. Now, it analyzes binary oppositions. Then, structuralism also sees text as interconnected within larger cultural construct or cultural system. So there will be shared conventions, there will be shared myths and all. So it calls for intertextuality in literature. Now, let's look into the key principles of structuralism. So structuralism had laid groundwork for the upcoming approaches like post-structuralism and all. So key principles of structuralism are: first one, binary oppositions. Binary oppositions stands for binary oppositions. Oppositions means two opposite concepts or two contradictory concepts, right? So binary means two. Binary stands for two. So binary opposition stands for two pairs of contrasting concepts, or which are fundamental in nature. So we can say that binary oppositions are fundamental pairs of some contrasting concepts like life, death, male, female, good, evil, and so on. So structuralists uses these binary oppositions to analyze text. Analyzing text means deciphering meanings within the text, embedded within the text. In the last video on new criticism, we have discussed about text. Text is made up of a matrix of word and meaning and so on, right? So structuralists believe that meanings arises from the relationship between these binary opposites rather than from individual elements alone. Say for example, in literature, if you want to analyze the concept of hero makes sense when it is contrasted to the concept of villain in the text, right? So these oppositions are deeply embedded within the cultural system and help to decipher the cultural narratives as well as myths. Now, second concept is langue and parole. So these distinctions come from Ferdinand de Saussure's linguistic theories. We can discuss about langue and parole in detail. So langue simply refers to the system of language. We can even say that langue can be considered as a menu card, and parole it's individual dishes. If you want, you can memorize it in that way, because langue refers to the overall system of language, the totality of linguistic structure, its shared set of rules, structures, and conventions existing within that linguistic format. And parole refers to individual speech acts. That is how language is used language is used by individuals in specific situations. So parole refers to something that is individual, or it refers to individual speech act which is connected to lang, which refers to the overarching system of language. Now, science and meaning. So in semiotics, social semiotics means study of science, scientific study of science. Right, so semiotics is sign consists of two parts, signifier and signified. Signifier stands for the physical form about which we are physical form like spoken word, written text or image, and signified stands for the mental concept that the signifier represents. Say for example, the word tree, T-R-E-E, tree, is a signifier which evokes when you hear tree, T-R-E or tree, when you happen to see the word tree, or when you happen to hear the sound tree, it evokes mental image or idea of tree within our minds, right? So this mental concept that the signifier represents is termed as signified. So TREE, tree, which is in written or spoken form, is the signifier, and the concept formed when you happen to hear TREE or when you happen to see the word tree is known as signified. Now, major structuralist theories to be discussed in connection with structuralism are Saussure. We can discuss about all these theories in detail in the upcoming classes. For the time being, we can discuss about the major structuralist theories. We can simply look into their contributions. So Saussure is there, then Levi-Strauss is there, Roland Barthes is there, Lacan is there. So Saussurean contribution in structuralism is that he introduced linguistics and also the concept of sign as something that is consists of signifier as well as a signified. When you come to Claude Lévi-Strauss, he studied myths and kinship structures in anthropology. He was an anthropologist, Lévi-Strauss. Prominent among these theorists is of course Ferdinand Saussure, who is a Swiss linguist whose works form the foundation of structuralism. He introduced the concepts in study of language, the concepts like lang and parole, where lang stands for the structured system of rules or language, and individual speech acts by people is referred to be as parole. Then Saussure introduced sign theory, where every sign consists of a signifier, part or sound or image, and a signified concept, which concepts and meaning arises from their relationship. He also said about arbitrariness of signs. That means there exists one-to-one connection between the signifier, there exists no one-to-one connection between, there is no one-to-one connection between a signifier and signifier as well and the signified, because TREE, tree, the linguistic sign as signifier TREE, tree, as well as the concept tree doesn't relate to each other in any way. So he says that there exists no one-to-one relationship between a signifier and signified. So his ideas allowed structuralists to analyze literature and culture through structures or in relationship with structures. Now Claude Lévi-Strauss is a second theorist in the row, where he was a French anthropologist who applied structuralist ideas to the study of myths, kinship, and cultural practices. His key ideas are related to mythology. His book Mythologics is important, where he argues that there is a common underlying structure for myth. Even though the myths varies from different cultures, their underlying structures will be the same. There will be a universal pattern for these myths. And Lévi-Strauss used structuralism to unearth these underlying systems that governs human culture. When you come to Lacan, who is a French psychoanalyst, you can see that Lacan Lacan integrated the structuralist ideas to psychoanalysis. He had reinterpreted Freud. His key ideas is that he had said the unconscious as structured like a language, he said. The unconscious, that's very important, the unconscious as structured like a language, Lacan said. Lacan argued that unconscious operates using structures similar to those of language. That's why it said that Lacan is greatly inspired by Saussurean linguistics. He also said about mirror stage in child, as well as a symbolic order that focuses on language and social structures that shapes identity and design. So we can discuss about these theories in detail in the upcoming classes. Please note that these thinkers expanded the ideas of structuralism beyond the scopes of linguistics. That is, beyond the scope of linguistics, it expands to anthropology, mythology, literature, psychoanalysis, and so on. Now, structuralism in various fields, that is, we have discussed linguistics, now anthropology, psychoanalysis, and literary. So we have seen that how these theories had expanded the scope of structuralism beyond linguistics. Now, there are several criticisms for structuralism. So, we know that structuralism emphasizes or overemphasizes on structure, right? Because structuralism places too much focus on the underlying structures and system, where kind of neglection happened for individual creativity, individuality, as well as historical context of these works. So their uniqueness, or it can reduce literature and cultures to formulas, they say. This some critics say. So structuralism has been criticized for ignoring individual agency and the role of this individual interpretation. So by emphasizing or language system over parole, it overlooks how individuals actively performs and transform systems of meaning, right? Now, another criticism is overgeneralization, because structuralism emphasizes on universal structures like myths or binary opposition. So there happens a kind of overgeneralization or oversimplify or misrepresents the diversity and complexity of cultures and literatures. Structuralists, or this kind of structuralist analysis, can sometimes become more technical, or it tends towards more technical or theoretical aspects. It happens some kind of inaccessibility for the for common readers. So most important criticism posed for structuralism is about its ignorance towards historical context or ahistorical approach. Structuralism often ignores the political, socio-political, as well as historical context of the text. Instead, it always relies upon its connection with abstract systems, says critics. So this led to the detachment of works from its reality or real world influences, says critics. So critics often says that structuralism disregards how meanings evolves over time, or it ignores historical context. Next is structuralism as a movement is challenged by post-structuralists like Derrida, Foucault, and so on. So let's examine how post-structuralism and its response has challenged. Post-structuralists like Derrida and Michel Foucault challenged the core assumptions of or core postulates of structuralism. They argued that meaning is not fixed. These post-structuralist critics argued that meaning is not fixed, meaning is not stable, and the structures themselves are subject to deconstruction. The structures themselves are subject to fluidity. The structures themselves are subjected to contradiction, and so on. So Derrida's idea of difference, for example, questioned this binary oppositions. Binary opposition is actually the key concept of structuralism, right? So it is challenged by Derrida's idea of difference, right? Now, so post-structuralism post-structuralism emerged as a critical response to structuralism, and it challenged the foundational beliefs of structuralism, we can say. First thing is that rejection of fixed meaning itself. Post-structuralists rejected the idea of concept of fixed meaning. Right, post-structuralists argued that meaning is not fixed, but rather it is fluid, it is dynamic, it is context-dependent, right? So, because meaning of a word or text can differ with respect to the perspective of different diverse readers, right? Or with respect to the historical moment or cultural context in which it is placed, right? And Derrida introduced the concept of deconstruction and said that the texts itself are inherently stable. Then he questioned about the reliance of structuralists upon binary oppositions, because he said that one side or parent binary opposition there will be two opposing concepts, right? But they coexist, right? So one of these will be often privileged over the other, and these hierarchies, good, evil, male, female, all these hierarchies are often subject for can be often subverted. Subversion of these hierarchies are possible in binary opposite concepts, good, evil. Sometimes what we perceived as good may not be good. Sometimes this privileged class of good people can be subjected to, or one among these pair of in binary opposition can be subverted. These hierarchies can be subverted, right? So he questioned the reliance of structuralists upon binary opposition, the concept of binary opposition like good, evil, and so on. So, or reading, writing, right? So it focused on, post-structuralists often focused on said that language itself is has its own limitations. Post-structuralists like Roland Barthes, Michel Foucault explored the idea that language is not a transparent medium for conveying meaning. Right? It has its own limitations as well as biases. Now, Roland Barthes has put forward his famous idea of concept of death of the author. He introduced the idea of death of the author and said that interpretation of text should not be constrained by author's intentions. But you can see he is slowly shifting into post-structuralist ideas, right? So readers are becoming instrumental in creating meaning. Readers makes it subjective, and the text itself is open to multiple interpretations, right? And in Knowledge and Power, further, Foucault says examine how system of knowledge are intertwined with power. So meaning is not just the product of language, but Foucault says that meaning is a social construct. Meaning can be a cultural construct. There are political forces that dictate what is considered to be or what is to be interpreted, right? So you can say that this post-structuralists question the stability of the structures underlined by structuralists. Then you can see the rejection of determinism or deterministic views that suggest that meaning is governed by rigid systems like binary oppositions or linguistic rules. Then post-structuralists called for the plurality of meaning, while structuralism seek to uncover a single underlying structure or meaning. But post-structuralism calls for the idea of plurality of meaning. They said that a text is capable of generating infinite interpretations, right? Now, structuralism aims for a kind of scientific and objective analysis of text, but post-structuralism challenged this possibility of objective analysis because post-structuralists highlighted that there can be biases in the language use. There are subjective perspectives involved in interpretations. Now, then deconstruction of these structural models finally demonstrated that structures are themselves built on unstable foundations. So these are all about post-structuralism and its response towards structuralism. So structuralism continues to evolve, and we can say that structuralism exists as classical form, and it has been expanded upon time. It has its own interdisciplinary applications in the field of AI, artificial intelligence, cognitive science, because here they analyze AI and big data are used to analyze language and cultural patterns, right? So AI, cognitive science, digital humanities, right? So for example, study of language structures as well as semiotics informs natural language processing as well as machine learning. So interdisciplinary applications are there, structuralist economics are there. They gained attention for addressing global inequality and development. Like structuralist economics emphasize the role of economic structures in shaping growth and shaping the growth. So anthropologists like Claude Lévi-Strauss, when you revisit structural anthropologists and their works on myth and cultural system, integrating it with contemporary theories of post-humanism and ecological anthropology, you can see there are anthropologists who anthropologists are actually revisiting Claude Lévi-Strauss works on myth as well as cultural systems. Now, structuralism has got its own impact on philosophy. Philosophers are exploring the structuralist ideas in relationship with several ideas in philosophy, like phenomenology and all. Now, in literary studies also, you can see structuralism has got its own effects. So we can say that structuralism has got its own. We can consider structuralism as a classic theory, right? After that, post-structuralism emerged and a lot of other theories emerged. But still, personally, I would like to think so. So structuralism revolutionized how we study language, culture, and society. And you can say that future research integrates structuralist insights in technology and as well as interdisciplinary studies. So structures are everywhere, right? Structures underpin everything, like language, culture, society, or there are a kind of structure for our thoughts, right? So by uncovering and analyzing these structural frameworks, we get insight into how meaning, relationships, as well as systems operates. See, from the grammatical rules that shape how we communicate. Grammatical rules actually shapes how we communicate, right? Then there are social hierarchical structures which influence our interactions, right? So when you understand these structures, it helps us to understand the complexities, and it helps us to make sense of the world. So that's all. So it's a very fascinating thing to recognize these structures and how these structures reshapes our perspectives, right? So that's all about structuralism. So thanks for listening. In the next session, we can go in detail about the works of various theories related to structuralism. Thanks for listening. Thank you.